that person comes in normally from a much larger organization and drops their sales compensation structure in, which is designed for several hundred, maybe thousands of sales people in the organization. And they just go, we're going to have this complexity, and go, boom, drop the mic. And I think that kills a lot of those kind of entrepreneurial organizations.
I mean, there's always been startups. There's always been small companies emerging in health tech. But I think especially in the last 2-3 years, there's a new AI company that I see hiring on LinkedIn like every other day. Every other day. And a lot of them, it's sub 50 people. Maybe the founder has been the one selling so far, or they've had one sales guy who's like a buddy from that founder's old world. And they move forward and they get to a point where they go, okay, we need to build a sales team and we need to build a comp plan to support them.
Right.
Obviously, I know you've done a lot of work directly for some of the bigger companies where there are a lot more complex sales organizations. But what is maybe your advice to some of those smaller companies where they're just starting to hire people? There's a lot of outsourced and partnerships.
Right.
How do you recommend they approach trying to figure out a good, solid comp plan so that, as you say, both sides succeed?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the one, that acronym of the keep it simple stupid, is always a great place to start, right? What I see most common is that the smaller the organization, where there's less clarity on the performance side in terms of an understanding of the magnitude of performance, or what's a good quota look like, because they don't have enough history, is to establish more of a commission rate plan where they understand what it is that they can afford from an ongoing cost of sale perspective, right? And then as you learn more things, then you can start coaching and developing more of a plan of understanding, and ultimately shift to maybe more of that bonus style where there's differing levels of payout. So I think the simplest one usually is figuring out a commission rate that is acceptable for you to be able to afford. And then what you have to do is also do enough of the math to figure out your personal cash flow of the revenue associated with those contracts, so that you can establish enough of a sustainable organization to the thing is, what you don't want to do is have somebody wildly successful selling things and then not have the cash to pay them. So in the getting it going phase, I personally think it's better to be very blunt and honest with what effectively will be like a partner inside of your organization. I kind of think you treat your sales people, especially those early years, as more of a partner, and be very frank with them about the situation of the organization. This is what we need in order to keep our doors open, right? I need you to sell more than that in order for us to make a profit, because all of that money, nobody's getting paid really anything in those early days. All this money needs to go into the development of the product for the next year and the year after that. And in that world, there's genuinely a true cash flow issue. And so figuring out how the organization can be comfortable enough to be able to pay that person, while at the same time making sure that they don't get themselves into a situation where they go belly up. And in some cases, that means delaying the comp to be able to account for that. But I do think this all involves a point of transparency, right?
It's interesting because, I think that your approach is the right one for that smaller company hiring their first one or two salespeople, i.e. sales professionals, as opposed to the founder going and being the pitch man. Is then, just going with a straightforward 2% of first year sales, 5%, 8%, whatever the number is that makes sense from a cost of sale perspective to be able to offset against that. The thing that I see that often happens, though, is that they reach that mid-size where they're going to scale up now to having, 10 to a dozen salespeople. So therefore, we need a sales leader, we need a CRO, and they hire somebody, and they immediately, that person comes in normally from a much larger organization and drops their sales compensation structure in, which is designed for several hundred, maybe thousands of sales people in the organization. And they just go, we're going to have this complexity, and go, boom, drop the mic. And I think that kills a lot of those kind of entrepreneurial organizations for a couple of reasons. One, it's so complicated that people can't get their head around what the heck am I actually trying to sell, and how can I be successful here? And then secondly, it becomes impossible to administer because there are so many variables involved in the design of it that it becomes a weekly 8-hour analysis exercise. And then lots and lots of contention and disagreement about, well, was that threshold met? Did they cross this trigger? Did they? And it just becomes very, very difficult to administer. This is a Haverin Best Bit, an excerpt from a full podcast episode. If you'd like to listen to that podcast episode, there'll be a link at the end here, or you can visit our channel. Alternatively, just browse this playlist and you'll find more best bits to enlighten and entertain. Keep Haverin.